Welcome to episode 62 of Shane Talks. This is a Lawrence Central class of 1998 reunion episode. I have been so excited for this episode for so long. As always, I'm joined by Jason L. Mayer, the greatest and most beautiful co-host anybody could ever ask for. And this week, we have an awesome guest with us. It is somebody that Jason and I went to all 4 years of high school with at Lawrence Central. We all three graduated in 1998 together. We have Mr. Jon Owens.
Woo! What it do?
What's up, brother? Thank you so much for being here. I'm so looking forward to going down this rabbit hole of history and all the stuff that we did when we were for those 4 years of high school and afterwards. It is gonna be a blast. So let's get started, man. Freshman year. I was in drama my freshman year. Jon, did you not take drama our freshman year? Did you wait till your sophomore year?
I did not do, I was not involved in the drama department at all freshman year. I was new, man. I didn't go to Belzer. I didn't go to Fall Creek Valley. So I was just kind of getting my feet wet, trying to get used to the music program. That's really what drew me to LC. I was watching Channel 8 local news when they had won Lures the year before. And I was competitive and I was like, man, I want to go to wherever, whoever won that trophy, I want to figure out how to go there. So that's how I ended up there. So I didn't even know about much about the drama program at all till I got to LC, and then started building a lot of friendships with people that were involved.
Nice. So your freshman year, you were involved in the men's choir club, where I assume you met Jason at, or at least got to know Jason pretty well there. And you guys were in the New Expressions choir group together. New Expressions did not do all the dancing also, right? Like you guys just sang?
New Expressions?
No? Oh, okay.
We had choreography, yeah.
Oh, cool.
But New Expressions was a little bit, it was freshman. But it had like Bad News Bears vibe. Like it was like show choir meets Lean on Me in New Expressions.
Okay.
Like, I remember first week of New Expressions, one of the girls making Miss Adrianson cry and go back to her office.
Really?
It was pretty rough.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Jason, what memories you got from New Expressions?
I remember Jon being in New Expressions and then not being in New Expressions. He has very famously told this story in other places, but yeah, so he essentially saw how rough and tumble we were in New Expressions, and he decided to flex a little bit, and he was like, yo, Mr. Bridgewater, you need to bounce me out of that. I can't be in there. And Jon had the chops to be where he should have been anyway. He should have probably been in Central Sound all 4 years, but
so let me ask you that. Obviously we'll get to Central Sound here in a little bit. Is it taboo for them to ever put a freshman in Central Sound, or were there freshmen?
It definitely was. At the time it was. I mean, when Jason and I were freshmen, especially coming off of the previous year where they were grand champions at Lures, they had most of Central Sound, our freshmen, and then even our sophomore year were seniors. Like over half were seniors. Most were juniors. You are either junior, senior. It was like the upperclassmen choir.
It was basically like varsity, man.
Yes,
like
100%.
Just like football, it was
it's
like
Sound Connection was like, I would say JV, and then freshman and New Expressions was freshman, and so and that's how it was. You would have some freshmen that would be in Sound Connection or whatnot. And for me, I mean, quite honestly, it wasn't even like I didn't have a whole lot to flex. Again, I had no relationship with the Bridgewaters. It wasn't like I had like inside scoop or connection. Really, like what I think it was a culture shock for me, because I had grown up. I'd been in the Indianapolis Children's Choir.
Oh, cool. I don't think I knew that.
9 years or 8.5 years old is when I joined the Indianapolis Children's Choir. Henry Leck, who was the director of the top choirs there, the dude was like, I will forever be grateful for so many things I learned from him, but he really taught us discipline. Like the dude was like, if you showed up without your music folder, you would spend that rehearsal in the hallway. Wow. I mean, it was like, and this was like before we had cell phones too. So it wasn't like I could just go and be like, hey mom, I can't be in practice. Can you come pick me up? It was like, no, I'm staying there in the hallway for an hour and a half till my mom gets back to pick me up. You know, your posture was straight. You had your music folder. You had a pencil, number 2 pencil, so you could erase it at the end of the year and turn it into music. I mean, it was just very, very disciplined. And I remember literally first day of New Expressions, getting in my seat, straight back, edge of the seat, got the music. We were learning that song from Free Willy, the Michael Jackson song from Free Willy. And all of a sudden, I see a paper airplane that somebody made with the sheet music fly by me. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to die. Like, I'm thinking, what is going on? And so for me, I remember having the conversation. It had nothing. I didn't even know, in my mind, I didn't know that there was another option for freshmen. And gotcha. But that first semester was so hard for me. And I didn't enjoy it. Because again, like, I like Miss Adrianson. The fact that, you know, you had folks that were so disrespectful that, like, you know, she's crying and doesn't even feel safe in her own class. That was miserable. And so I just told him, I was like, listen, if I got to wait till next year to be in another choir, I'm fine with that, but I can't be in New Expressions anymore.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I don't even enjoy it. I actually care about music, you know, you could tell for some people, they were just taking it because it was an elective. It was just another, you know, it was just another study hall.
What exactly did the men's choir club do? Like, when did you guys meet and stuff like that? Did you guys just sing rehearsal stuff?
No, you know, well, when we were at LC, they did. They had the club hour.
Yep.
Where like once every month or something like that, they gave us an extra. Like, you could join all these different clubs, and they had a sign up during lunch periods for a while. And and our friend James Choplin knew, like, so going back, I was just joking about the flexing part for you, John, but yeah. So John dipped out New Expressions after the first semester. The second semester, him and I had Miss Longstretch pre-algebra. However you want it. I'm sorry. Sorry.
That's where I really got to know Jason.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's actually like we knew each other because of New Expressions, but we actually became friends because of pre-algebra at that point.
Okay.
And, but yeah, as far as what you were asking, men's choir club, it was they did a club thing where, like, once a month everybody got to meet up and they made all these very, you know, clubs that just didn't exist as like electives. Like, I remember that's where the Japanese club started. That ended up becoming the Japanese foreign language that they taught at the school.
Oh, cool.
And Mr. Megashire was the one in charge of that too.
Oh, like, I remember him. Yeah.
And one of my little known claims to fame is that I was the president of the Japanese anime club.
Really? That's awesome.
So, but yeah, like James Choplin was one of the guys, and he was our freshman year. He was a senior.
Yep.
He was a captain of the football team. Literally everybody who knew, like, you didn't know, everybody who went to school there knew who James Choplin was.
Yep.
Didn't matter. And he wasn't like a star on the football team. He was just that likable of a guy.
Sure.
And he was a really good guy. He still
now
is
he's in the FBI,
guy.
so he
well, does he do that now? I know that he was. I was gonna not
FBI, Secret Service.
He was in the Secret Service. You're right. But he, he came up to me and he was like, "Wait a minute, you're in New Expressions, right?" And he didn't even know my name at the time. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm in New Expressions." He was like, "Sign up for this. Sign up for Men's Choir Club." And I was like, "All right." So, like, I signed up because he asked me to, and you know, and I loved singing, still do, but like, nice. It was my, like, it was that thing. It was that thing, and then he did that. And Jon even had a solo that freshman year for that for men's choir, if I'm remembering correctly.
We did in the Still of the Night, didn't we?
Yep, in the Still of the Night for Variety Pops.
Oh, cool.
And we only performed once, and we as a group, but we did that, and that was kind of fun. And we did that a couple more years, I think, but I don't think we ever did any other performances.
I don't remember doing any other Variety Pops performances except for that year.
Well, our freshman year, the musical was The Music Man, and our high school or our yearbook. What?
Guys and
Dolls. Apologies. Guys and Dolls. Our freshman year was Guys and Dolls. Our yearbook claims that 70 people were in the cast. Were either of you guys in that cast for Guys and Dolls?
Yes.
Right on. What'd you guys do?
I was the first person on stage. I'm always happy about that.
Oh, nice.
Curtain came up. I was dressed as the street photographer for the opening sequence, and I was I was literally dead center of the stage as that curtain came up as a freshman, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm so cool! I got center stage as soon as they turn on the lights." And then but I never had a speaking part. I was just in the chorus. Besides that, so it worked out.
And Jon, who were you?
I was just in the chorus.
Okay.
And I loved it. I mean, it was a super fun show. Again, and I know we're probably partial, but having been a part of the performing arts there at LC and then been in other community theater shows, we had some talented people, man. Just some really talented folks. And so, I feel like we got spoiled, in some of the shows that we were able to be a part of at LC because, it was a blast.
Nice. Well, let's move on to our sophomore year. Jon, that's where you and I started hanging out and spending more time together.
Man.
We did 2 plays together that year under Mr. Goodrum. Did you take drama class with Mr. Goodrum your sophomore year?
I did, and it was one of the best things that I ever did.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of the best things I ever did. So when I freshman year, I didn't participate in honestly, I didn't really know anything about the drama club much at all, or the drama department. Sophomore year, I'd known and I'd heard about Mr. Goodrum, and I was more so part of why I even signed up for the class was I was totally intrigued by the fact that there was a stage in the classroom.
Yep.
And I always was jealous when I would walk with my friends and they'd go into that classroom wait, what's in there? It just seemed like a magical world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started taking his class, and I'm sure that there's some folks that maybe just didn't connect with him well. But there are few teachers that I've had over my life that, and again, I didn't work with him at all my freshman year. But man, the impression, literally, and Jason would appreciate this even just from, attending the church that I preach at, but the things that he spoke to me about in that class, I remember them when I'm preaching or when I'm, preparing to communicate so much about even just improvisation. And you guys know, it's like if you work with him, you knew you were going to do some improvisation. That was a foundation of so much that he taught. So yeah, that was one of the shining moments of my high school career, is being able to work with him.
For sure. Literally, I wouldn't, 24 years later, wouldn't still be trying to do any storytelling or acting or directing, or I wouldn't be doing any of that stuff if I had not taken his class. Being taught by him and watching him direct people, and it has had a lasting impression in my life as well. And like I said, without taking that, I probably wouldn't have any interest in film the way that I do now, or storytelling the way I do, or anything like that. So,
and he was a character too, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's even if I say it, if somebody's listening to this podcast, we're not talking about he wasn't just some soft spoken teddy bear. This dude would I remember him slamming his desk in the middle of somebody's performance and throwing a pin at the stage.
During rehearsals, there would be times where like I'd be rehearsing a scene and he would literally like he's a little heavier set guy, but he could move quickly and would just like grab my shoulders and like shake me and move me where he want. Like, this is how I want, like mold me like Play-Doh. Like, this is how I want you to be. Like, he had that presence and that like teachability factor to him that like he was very, very characteristic when he needed to be.
100%. And you better not break character.
No,
like
not at all.
Do not break character and do not be monotonous. He would be like vocal variety.
Yep. Oh my God, I can hear those words. Yes.
I know, man.
Yeah. So
literally, I when I tell you, I hear him.
That's awesome.
Speaking to me and critiquing me.
But yeah, so our sophomore year, the fall of 95, we did My Sister Eileen. You and I spent a lot of time together in this play because we were both Brazilian admirals. Right before we started recording this, we were talking about the fact that we really don't remember any of our real lines because they were all in Spanish. I do
remember. I had one line in English.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I had one line in English because it was when I was. I remember I was so paranoid about it because it was when I was a construction worker at the end.
Oh, okay. And yeah, because you had First Man and Construction Worker were also characters that you did according to the playbill.
So as the construction worker, I break through and I yell, "What the hell?" And I remember being so nervous that my parents were going to bust my chops for cussing. I never told them. I didn't tell them anything until the show. And then like afterwards, my dad was like, I noticed you didn't mention that you were going to drop that one.
That's awesome.
I was just so glad to have a line that was in English.
Sure. And then our winter play that year, February of 96, we did I Remember Mama, which turned out to be Mr. Goodrum's last directing job that he did at Lawrence Central because he fell ill during the production and Mr. Bridgewater had to come in and finish the last couple weeks that we were doing the play. So the sophomore year, you got Mr. Bridgewater directing You and I Remember Mama, and you also jumped up to Central Sound to start working with him. So Mr. Bridgewater had a big influence on you your sophomore year, I bet.
Absolutely. And throughout, throughout my journey at LC, Mr. Bridgewater, had a big impact on me. Whenever it's one of the reasons that I just love the performing arts is because, apart from my parents, and, even in the influence of my relationship with God, when I think about the people that contributed to shaping me as a leader, as a father, as a creative, the people that come to mind are the creative directors that I had throughout the years. It's the Mr. Goodrums, it's the Mr. Bridgewaters, it's Henry Leck, it's Deborah Sante with the African Children's Choir, or Children's Theater, it's Kathleen, and I learned a lot about leadership. I learned a lot about hard decisions and wrestling with lots of different things. I mean, Mr. Bridgewater, one of the things that I really appreciated, and it wasn't just for me, it was for a lot of people, is he would see talent, but he was really I could tell that he cared about me beyond what I could bring from a talent standpoint. He actually wanted me to succeed. He wanted me to develop character. We had really hard discussions about grades, when I was struggling or when I was slacking off. We'd have some very frank convos in regards of, I even remember, I don't want to, skip the gun, but even, thinking about how to succeed in music without, or in business without really trying, him really challenging me of like, you have this story arc of somebody who's barely getting by and, who's kind of escalating, but by doing the minimum requirement and kind of skating and not really developing along the way. And Mr. Bridgewater just kind of challenging me and connecting some dots with the character and saying, Jon, I don't want you to barely make it just because you're able to like fool people along the way. I actually want you, you know, to learn everything that you can. And
Nice.
And so all that to say, he was definitely influential. And again, connected the dots for what I was passionate about from art in the beginning. Was it's
Nice.
like I wanted to be good. I wanted to compete, and man, he pushed us. I have lots of funny memories of particularly being in choir where he didn't necessarily want to just single someone out that wasn't singing the right part or embarrass them. But and to this day, I actually did this in practice the other day. Whenever somebody was like under pitch, he would take his baton, he would go, get on top of the pitch. Like it was just like he would kind of give this thing, and you could tell you were slightly under. And he would sometimes go row by row, section by section, to try to give you the opportunity to sing the right note. And some people made the adjustment, some people didn't. But I really enjoyed working with him.
Very cool. So your sophomore year, you guys worked with him on The Music Man. Tell me about your characters in that, Jason.
I was the conductor on the train at the very beginning of the show. And then after that, I was just basically in the chorus, but I had a couple of lines at the beginning of the show. And again, one of those things where I enjoyed just being a part of experiencing all that kind of stuff, but it was another one of those moments of like, oh, dang, freshman year, I'm the first man on stage. And then sophomore year, I'm getting lines like right at the beginning of the show. I was like, oh, man. And I made Central Sound for next year. Ooh,
come on.
Ooh.
Okay, wait. So hold on. So your sophomore year, you already knew that you were going to be in Central Sound the next year?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
We did tryouts.
Yep.
And after he released the cast list for the musicals on the same day that he also released like what choir you made for the next year.
Oh, well, then, okay, Jon, we need to jump back for a second real quick then. So I hear the story that you quit New Expressions halfway through our freshman year, and then somehow at the end of our freshman year, they were still like, we're putting you in the best show choir that we have.
So I quit New Expression. I would say this. I transitioned.
Not promoted. I won't say quit.
I transitioned from New Expressions to Sound Connection.
Oh, okay. I got you.
And Sound Connection, yeah, you had upperclassmen. So you had some seniors, some juniors, some sophomores, and then you had some freshmen. So that's actually where I met Alex Charette.
Nice.
Keith Hancock was there, and there were other other freshmen that I met that were in Sound Connection.
Okay, so you our freshman year, you still second semester in Sound Connection were still able to show yourself off and then make it into Central Sound your sophomore year.
Correct.
Any other sophomores your sophomore year, or were you just that good?
Yeah, Alex Charette and Keith Hancock were in it as well that year. I'm trying to think. I think we were the three sophomores.
I was going to say, I don't think there were any female sophomores in there.
No, because they had so many senior and junior
they had a ton.
Ladies that year. We had, there's like, there were 50 singer dancers.
Nope, it was 40, I thought.
Was it 40 singer dancers? 20, at least 20 were seniors. So it was a major turnover the next year.
Gotcha. Jon, who were you in The Music Man?
I was the tenor in the barbershop quartet.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
It was super fun. It was also before my voice changed, so it was prime.
Nice.
Prime time, but it was a blast. It was really a blast.
The quartet, if I'm remembering correctly, it was Dan McKee, Eric Steele, you, and Matt Gibson. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Nice.
Oh.
I know Matt Gibson, so it's very cool to know he was a part of that.
Yeah.
the last thing that I know that you were involved in. Oh, go ahead, Jason. Go.
I was going to say, and since we're going down memory lane and we're talking about all this fun stuff, our sophomore year was the year that Central Sound went undefeated. And that was the year that like I'd say like halfway through our sophomore year, I finally decided there's no way they're going to keep me out of Central Sound next year. So it was like, I definitely turned up I definitely took on a leadership role with Sound Connection. And then I was pushing myself harder and trying to make sure that there was no way that they could tell me you can't be in that next year.
Awesome.
So yeah, that was, and it was because of how awesome they were. And because of like John and Bobby Knight and some other friends of ours that were in there, and they were like, Jason, you can do this, man. You can be in here. And I think Matt Gibson was one of them too. Yep. Like it was mainly the three of them that were kind of pushing me, saying that I could be better and do it. And and that's how it ended up happening for me. So anyway, you were
going off on this tangent real quick, because I got another question that's come up. But as most people know, a lot of my high school years are pretty fuzzy. My memory's not the greatest. I've drank a lot of my memories away or gotten rid of them from my brains in various ways. So I know that I have been to various show choir competitions that you guys were a part of over the years. I don't remember which ones I've been to, but when like our sophomore year, Jason, when you were in, which one was it you were in? Sound Connection. Did you guys compete at the same events as Central Sound? Like, did you guys both go and were you able to then support each other at those competitions, or were they completely separate things?
No. Like, for the most part, the only thing that we did that Central Sound kind of did, besides like performances for like all the regular like spring concert and stuff like that, was the only thing that we did was they needed assistance with like the show choir competition that we hosted, the Central Sound Classic. And so it was one of those moments where like I assisted with that, but no other choir at that point in time was competing besides Central Sound. No, like,
gotcha.
Never went to a competition. They didn't.
Okay.
Well, Sound Connection, when I was in Sound Connection, we had one competition when I was in Sound Connection.
Okay. We did not do that my year.
We went, I'm trying to think where we went. Because wherever we went to an amusement park afterwards. And I'm trying to remember if we went to Kentucky Kingdom or if we went to Kings Island. I can't remember, but we went to one competition and that was it. The same. In our junior year, they did the same thing. Once I got into Central Sound, our junior year, Sound Connection and Sweet Sensations, the all-girl group, both of them went to Kings Island for a competition. Yes. So that's what happened when we went. I think that's what it was. It was Sound Connection and Sweet Sensations. And I think we went to Kings Island. So I don't know why they skipped a year.
That's weird.
But I just to piggyback on what he said about that year, that undefeated season, as a sophomore, it was one of the coolest things to be a part of. And the first competition, my first competition with Central Sound, I'll never forget, like the freshman, we were sitting near the back of the bus and we're about to get off. And Joe Crawford, like, I don't know if you guys remember Joe.
Yep.
Joe Crawford was a bad man. Like, it was like, if I could be a black dude like that, like he's just that dude. He was that dude. And he came back to us and he goes, listen, I don't care who you think you are or who you thought you were before you showed up here. But when we get off this bus, you are Central Sound. So get your junk together.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, Joe. And dude, when we stepped off, and again, like, you know, that group, you know, there was three of us that were pretty raw, but for the most part, that group had done stuff together. They had been in shows together. And when we stepped off that bus, I've never experienced this because I didn't play sports on that level, but we literally are walked through the hallways and people are like looking at us and whispering. It was like there was like a reputation about Central Sound that I did not get. And then once we got there, and then also like when we performed, it was like you got like superpowers. Like it was crazy. It was insane. And then just to keep, being in these competitions, we had one show. It was when we were in Alaska, and literally between the first show and the finals, Miss Bridgewater didn't like something that we were doing, and they completely changed choreography, shifted it was crazy, and we pulled it off in one that year. But it was insane, and it definitely set a tone for me for the rest of my time there at LC.
Nice. You weren't kidding, man. Like that. Might as well go down this rabbit hole for a second, but yeah, it was one of those moments where I didn't get it. Like I didn't, like John said, you don't get it because you've never been to a comp, and then you went to that first competition. It was like eye-opening, and it was hilarious because when we were there, Central Sound was at some point there was some kind of like national ranking, and we were like 4th in the nation or something crazy like that. And so the fact that like every time we performed at a competition, like and it's so funny to think about it like in this manner, but it's like it was literally like everybody paid attention. There was no like other choirs could be performing and people are joking and having fun and being silly with their fellow people. Dude, whenever we were on stage, everybody was just dialed in. Everybody in the entire auditorium. It's such a weird thing to think about. Like, this is a show choir. Like, it's not the NFL. It's not the NBA. Like,
but it's like people that haven't been like, we know this, and this is a general. There's always labels and tensions that you deal with when you're talking about like sports versus performing arts. There's like the jocks, and then there, people can assume the arts aren't competitive. But if you've been in it, and especially that's why I love show choir, because it wasn't just let's just sing Kumbaya for our parents, or let's not just sing some song in Latin for the Christmas for the spring concert. It was like, no, we're going out here to compete. And I love the competition aspect of it, but it was intense, and you were timed, and you had to be precise, and literally you're getting scored on whether or not your arms are straight, when you're doing choreography, or whether you're out of breath when you sing. So I absolutely loved it. What was weird to me though was, and it was weird, it was fun, is like it was intense. Like, we get in these like finals, or some, especially where I remember it most was our junior and senior year, that some of these competitions that we went to, particularly one was Bishop Lures. Parents would like, I got flicked off by a parent, bro, at Lures.
Oh wow.
Like, it was like people were really wilding out at these competitions sometimes.
Wow. All right. Well, the one last thing I want to address real quick with our sophomore year. John, do you remember what song you sang at Variety Pops our sophomore year, you and Dante Murray?
Oh, of course.
Well, can you perform it for us real quick? Do you still remember the words?
Oh, I remember the words. I don't know if we need a reiteration here, but the 2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on sesame seed bun, in variation scat.
So you guys literally, I don't remember this, but you guys literally sang that to the crowd?
Well, it was off of, there was a commercial, McDonald's commercial that Al Jarreau had done.
Okay.
And he, is a famous jazz vocalist. And so, and I forget who was doing it opposite of him. I almost want to say, there's a part of me that wants to say it is Ella Fitzgerald, but I don't believe it was. But they had this back and forth. And so during one of our competitions, we were just goofing off and doing it. And then we just thought, I think when the audition came up, we were like, oh, let's maybe do it, and it would be fun. And so
according to our yearbook, it was a huge hit.
It was fun. I mean, it helped us that it was a popular commercial, so everybody knew it. So it had that factor to it. And it was also before the kale and health craze. So everybody probably got some McDonald's afterwards.
Vesta Williams is
Who is Vesta Williams? What do I know her from?
I've never heard of her name, but I'm sure
okay.
she is very popular and a very
Yes.
famous person. So
Gotcha.
but yeah, that's who was singing it along with Al Jarreau.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, let's slide into our junior year, where, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, Mr. Goodham retired after our sophomore year because of his health issues, and Shane doesn't do well with change, so Shane just kind of decided he didn't want to be a part of any performing arts anymore, and he'd rather go off and try to be popular and do sports and stupid stuff like that. So I said deuces to the theater department. So the next 2 years we're going to talk about is going to be a lot about you guys. You guys were still in the men's choir club your junior year, and our friend who's been on this show a couple of times, Chris Meek, I think was a freshman that year when you guys were juniors. He joined the choir club with you. And Jason, as you said earlier, you made it up to Central Sound your junior year and stayed there your senior year. So what Central Sound memories and stuff do you guys have from your junior year?
Oh man, that was the year that we would have like I was talking about, we were talking about earlier with like your first competition in a performing arts thing. Our first competition that year was Finley Fest over in Ohio, FFE. And here I am in Central Sound for the first time, and I had no clue what I was a part of, essentially. Yeah. And then Finley First Edition is literally like the Ohio version of Central Sound at that point in time. Okay. And so I didn't realize that when we walked into their house, like they were doing the whispering about, like, it was the same kind of things where like we were getting hate and whispers and nasty things done or said to us, more so than done to us. But like it was like, what the heck's going on? Like, why is
I'm getting a vibe like Bring It On type vibe? Totally. Okay.
Yes.
So to remind me and for anybody who doesn't know, how many songs were in a show by a show choir?
Typically really 4.
Okay.
Yep. Like you would do two up tempo, 1 ballad, and then your big finale.
And it had to be, what was it, 20 minutes? Wasn't it? Wasn't that the whole scope from setup to tear down?
Like literally you'd have your risers, everything on the side, and as soon as they say your time starts, literally you're being timed from the moment you step on that stage to the last person that walks off the stage. And then you get deductions for anything you got off. So, I mean, that's where it's like, as soon as we were finished, we do our bows, we're taking apart risers, we're rushing off. When we did, what song was it? Dr. Jazz. I remember, no, it wasn't Dr. Jazz. It was, which one was? Oh yeah, that's when we're like, I still remember the footsteps for it.
Nice.
When we were at Lures, we're rushing off, and I've got taps on, and we're rushing off with risers, and I slip and slip underneath the riser, and it falls on my chest. Ooh. My adrenaline was pumping so much. I just tossed it up, hopped up, and kept going.
Oh, wow.
I was like, dude, we were so jacked, but yeah, it's like, you get time. So it was definitely intense.
So let me ask you this. In your 2 years that you guys were together, or John, and I doubt this, it sounds like it wouldn't have happened in your undefeated year. So in you guys' 2 years together, was there ever a performance or moment where somebody did something that literally cost you the entire show? Like you're telling me about arms being straight and like, okay, so there was no moment where like somebody did one terrible thing that cost you the whole show or anything?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, not to say that nobody ever made a little bit of a mistake, but I would say, I mean, and this isn't to be arrogant, but particularly when you're talking about the choirs, and I would say, I'll put this caveat: my sophomore year and our junior year were very different than
Okay.
our senior year in terms of the choir. And a
Okay.
lot of that had to do with the carryover of, it was a combination of carryover of tradition. You know, some of it, quite frankly, there was some entitlement. You know, we talked about how it was a little bit taboo when I was in it
Sure.
to have sophomores in Central Sound. Well, we had a wave in our junior year of freshmen that were in it, and
Really?
namely legacy freshmen. So like Jimmy Pikes, Justin Bridgewater. So, you know, and then you had a lot of that. There was a lot of freshmen that came from Fall Creek Valley, but that were then the sophomores our senior year. So all that to say is, most of the time we're talking about fractions of a point between first runner-up and grand champion and that whole thing. And I mean, everybody's working their butts off. You know, I would say when it was our senior year, the hard thing there was it wasn't that anybody was like trying, you know, nobody tries to make mistakes. I don't think we were as collectively as good of a choir as we were the prior years. Okay. Where it was like our junior year, if we lost the competition, quite frankly, it was a coin toss. I think we lost there was one competition that we weren't grand champion in our junior year. So it was like sophomore year, we were undefeated. Junior year, we won. I want to say we won 4 and lost, and we're first run up for 1. Is that right, Jason?
I think so. We either went 3-1 or 4-1.
I want to say we were first runner up at Highlands Invitational in Anderson.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Do you feel like you should have won it?
Sorry. It's weird, the stuff that sticks in your head, right?
Yep.
So junior year, we were runner up at Sauk Prairie.
That's what it was.
And then our senior year, we went 2-2. And kind of like what you were saying, because from our sophomore to junior year, we lost 20 seniors. From our junior year to our senior year, we lost another 20. So then a lot of instead of like it being a mix of like junior, sophomores, and a couple of freshmen, like he said, we had a very youthful wave essentially that came. I
mean, I think you had the picture of the seniors from Central Sound, Shane. I think you showed it to me earlier. Yep. I mean, it wasn't like there was, what was there, 10 of us maybe?
Maybe,
12 or 14 or something.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of us that year, you know. Yeah. And so we lost a lot of, you know, elder statesmen and again, I still enjoyed it, but it was definitely it was a different culture, you know. It wasn't, you didn't I would say my sophomore year, by the third competition, I was going to be shocked if we lost. And not because I was amazing. I mean, I felt like Adam Morrison on those Kobe, Shaq, Lakers teams where you're like, I'm getting a ring, but I'm on the bench. I'm not like, you know, and I was in there. I was performing. Sure. I'm like, I'm just glad to be in the room right now.
Nice.
But, you know, it's like our junior year, I mean, we had some great people, you know. Nice. In our senior year, you know, I mean, again, you're talking about, I mean, just super, super talented. And we liked each other. Like, nice. I would say sophomore year was fun. It was fun to be undefeated. But junior year was probably the year that I just enjoyed being a part of that group in a special way. You know, Matt Gibson, that was his senior year. Matt was really really close friend. It still is a great friend of mine. So that was his last year before he graduated. So being able to, I would say that was the year that most of my, you know, what I would say were my best friends in high school, where we were all in Central Sound together.
That's awesome. So our junior year, Kathleen Clark Corrigan, or Kathleen Clark, or whatever she was when she came to LC, took over the drama department. And like I said, I did not do any more plays, but she did Enter Laughing and Dinner at 8 that year. John, I know Jason didn't start drama till his senior year. John, did you do either of those plays?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not, and it was it was kind of similar to you, man. I again, it was one of the wildest things just to think that somebody would leave such an impression in 1 year. But when Mr. Goodrum, retired, I took it pretty hard. And I was just skeptical as well. I was like, who is this new person coming in? What's going on?
See, and I mean, I can kind of tell this story. Like I was a dick. My first day of my junior year, I literally walked into the drama room. I knew that it wasn't going to be Mr. Goodrum. I had no idea who the teacher was going to be, but I was like, I'm going to go introduce myself. I'm going to make sure she knows who I am. So that like when the plays come around, like she knows, like, because the last play that I did when we did, I Remember Mama, like I had fourth billing for the men. And so like I was the only freshman that was in both the fall and winter plays my freshman year. So I had done all 4 plays up to that. I'd gotten myself up to fourth billing on the men's side. So I was like, I'm going to walk in there. I'm going to make sure she knows who I am.
Right.
And Kathleen didn't give 2 shits about who I was. She was literally like, meh, you're just another, drama student to me. Like, oh, you decided you didn't want to take my drama class? Good luck getting in the play. And I was like, I don't like this lady. I'm not even gonna try out. Yeah. Luckily, she has forgiven me for being a raging dick of a junior in high school, and I think Kathleen and I have a great relationship now. But yeah, I was kind of a dick when I first walked in there. Yeah, so that's pretty much why I quit drama, was because I was arrogant and egotistical.
Yeah. Well, and I would say I was never I didn't have any beef with Kathleen at all. It was, for me, it was more of just like, it just felt, even just thinking about it kind of makes me feel a little bit emotional. I just remember the first time going into that room when he wasn't there and just feeling like,
do you remember all the Oscars that he had all over the taped onto the wall? Like walking in there and not seeing those anymore, like seeing all of them gone.
It just felt so weird. And I think there was a part of me I think the thing that helped me with Kathleen is I had a friend of mine, because she came to LC, the school she was at before LC was Decatur, Decatur Central. And I had a friend of mine that went there that knew Kathleen. And so she had reached out to me and she said, hey, my old drama teacher is coming to LC. That was actually the first time I realized that Mr. Goodrum wasn't coming back.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, okay, well, at least I know a little bit about her. So the way that I engaged, because I didn't participate in the plays, the way I engaged that junior year is when she came is when she started introducing the Thespian Society.
Yep.
And so I had said, you know what, let me try this out. And I mean, it didn't take me long to just fall in love with Kathleen.
Good.
I really, there was probably a little bit of that in junior year where I probably had a little teacher crush. But part of it was honestly like I could tell like she was really, she was her, she was authentically herself. She wasn't Mr. Goodrum. She wasn't trying to be Mr. Goodrum.
Sure.
But she was also like, and I don't mean to say this in any way to knock him, but she was in her own way kind of adding and bringing something to that drama community at LC that wasn't there before.
I can definitely see that.
And so I appreciated that. I did not get involved in any of the plays that year, but being a part of the Thespian Society, I went to one of the thespian competitions.
Awesome.
Which was really cool experience. And then senior year was in a couple productions, but
awesome. Yeah. Well, the last thing our junior year, the musical was Hello, Dolly. Jason, who were you in that?
Just a chorus guy. There's not very many, there's not a whole lot of guy part there's not a whole lot of star parts in that musical. It's a lot of chorus.
Okay.
So John, if I'm remembering correctly, did you have any lines in that one?
I did not. And to be honest with you, it's so funny because when I think about high school, high school musicals, that one feels the most. I remember, I don't know whether it was like the show season, but for whatever reason, that show for me felt the most like a blur. And that it wasn't, and it's not was it Nicole Merchot had the lead in that one? Not a knock on her at all. She did she's a great talent. And as soon as they announced what we were doing the show, I was just like, she's probably the most. I don't know if there was maybe a more fitting candidate to play a Barbra Streisand character than Nicole. She just had a personality and a presence about her that was great. But that being in that show, out of Guys and Dolls, Music Man, and of course our senior year, How to Succeed. It was the one that just didn't stick with me as much.
Right on.
I also don't care for it. Like, it's fine as a musical, but as far as like, there's not a whole lot of memorable things about the show for the most part. I mean, it's just kind of like it's a matchmaking. It's a show about matchmaking, and it's just kind of, it's fine, but like, I don't find it timeless like the other three that we did by any stretch. So
right on. Well, we can move on to our senior year now. We'll go off on a slight tangent because despite me not doing any productions that year, Jon and I still spent a lot of time together in a in a competitive way. We did a government law class together, and we ended up winning our government law competition for the state of Indiana. So we ended up getting put into AP Economics together the second half of our senior year, which was just a ruse for us to have more time to study for our government law competition when we went to Washington, D.C. To compete representing the state of Indiana. So I got a cool picture proving that we were friends in high school of you and I next to each other when we were celebrating at the state competition when we won first place. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. Do you have any, we talked very briefly, do you have any memories of us doing that together?
So 100%. And again, it's kind of interesting. I mean, every year you have something that stands out to you. And easily, I mean, honestly, not just even senior year, but one of the coolest experiences of my high school career was competing in that We the People competition. Again, I love competition. I like being evaluated and growing and seeing how we can tweak things. And as a aspiring communicator at that time, and also somebody who was interested in politics and government, it was fun. It's like we had, remember we had those like layers of competition. We would compete with the classes, the different periods, and then we had the regional, and then we had the state, and each time, I
had completely forgotten about that. Mr. Horvath had at the state level had multiple classes that were all competing, and we beat out all of our own like classmates that were at LC with us.
Well, before we went to state, we had regionals.
Okay.
Regionals had multiple class periods.
Okay, that's what it was.
When we went to state, we were the only ones.
We were okay.
Yeah. And I remember that because state was at Butler.
Yep.
And I just remember the feeling of like and it was what's so funny about that class is you had, and it was honestly one of the beautiful things about LC to me during that time. I think LC's changed a lot, even just how things are zoned over there are different.
Sure.
But you really had you had slices of every socioeconomic, ethnic, you had, and just to speak in broad terms, it's like you had, the rich Geist kids, you had the kids that lived, off of Pendleton Pike, you had the kids that lived off the trailer park, you had the crew, Black, white, Hispanic over in like Devington Plaza area, it was like, why aren't we going to Arlington? But we're not. It's like you had all this mix. And so in that class, you had people that outside of that class, we would never hang.
Nope.
You had jocks, the valedictorians. And yet we're winning a state championship together. We're like all high-fiving each other. It was so wild.
And that picture of us celebrating is exactly what you're talking about. Just like fun to look at and see all, like looking at it. I'm like, man, like I didn't really like this person, but we were on a team together. So I had fun hanging out with them when we were doing this.
Oh yeah. And then when we going to nationals, that was crazy.
Amazing.
That
disappointing, but amazing.
Yeah. It was disappointing because honestly, we had a great. I mean, I remember. We missed the finals by a fraction, by just 2 points. Yeah,
2 points. We were in 11th place by 2 points.
Yeah, and it really came down to a couple teams where not everybody talked.
Yep, that 100%.
And because if we would have made it to finals, there's no doubt in my mind. Because you know how you got graded by units. There's a couple of our units that totally would have won.
There were 6 units. So quick explanation of it. There was 6 units. You had groups of 4 on each unit. All 4 of the people had to talk during the competition. It was a 3-day competition. The first 2 days you added your points together. The top 10 teams, there was 1 representative from each state. So there was 50 teams there all competing. After the 2 days, they added your scores together from those 2 days. And the top 10 got to move on to compete on the 3rd day, and all the scores were erased. It was 1-day competition, whatever your score was. That's how they ranked 1 through 10 to win. After the 2 days, when they added up the scores, we were in 11th place by 2 points.
Yeah, for where I was a little extra salty is our unit, because we had Unit 6. I was on Unit 6. And our individual, because our team didn't qualify for the finals, our unit didn't qualify to win kind of the upper awards.
Yeah.
But our unit actually beat all of the Unit 6s that went to the finals. And I was
nice.
Like,
dude,
But
I want to say I was on Unit 4, and I'm pretty sure I had Courtney Mills on my unit, and she carried our team because she was insane.
Yeah, I mean, we had it, but honestly, again, it was like there was all kinds of people. I think you and I, there was a certain level of comfort, in communicating because of our background in theater.
Sure.
But
I like to talk.
Right. everybody had their strength, but the disappointment aside, it was
amazing
an unreal
experience.
I remember thinking, because it was the same weekend as prom, so we all had to decide to miss out on our senior prom to go. I've never once regretted it.
Never once. I agree. 100%.
Amazing.
And we kind of got a prom. Saturday night that we were in DC, they had a big
with people from all over the nation.
Yeah.
Many of those that were all girls schools. That was an interesting dynamic. But
that was a very interesting dynamic. I had forgotten about that until you just brought that up. But I do remember the all girls school. Yeah. But yeah, so we had our little faux prom while we were in DC, and that was it was a blast because it was, 23 people that I'd spent the whole year hanging out with, and none of us had prom dates. So we were just all kind of there as a collective, and it was a good time. All right, let's get back. Let's focus back on actual dramatic stuff that happened our senior year. You guys were, what is this? Oh man. Yeah. So let me bring everything down real quick. As I've been going through all the yearbooks and everything, somebody that lived 5 houses down from me in my neighborhood. His name was Peter Boone. I know both of you guys knew him while we were in high school. Last December of 2020, he actually ended up passing away due to complications from COVID. He had a lot of other health issues going on as well, but definitely getting COVID did not help him in any way. So he did a lot of photography for the yearbook, and a lot of Jon's photos our junior and senior year that ended up in the yearbook have the caption "Photo by Peter Boone." So I kind of had that reminder this week, going through all this stuff and looking at stuff at his name. The first time it popped up, I was just like, "Oh, Peter took this picture." Oh, and Peter's not with us anymore. So just want to give a shout out to Peter, because while Peter and I didn't end the last couple of years of stuff on the best terms, it's one of my big regrets that I never buried the hatchet with him, because I held on to some stuff pretty much from high school and never got over it, and I should have been a more adult about it. So I just wanted to say that it was bittersweet to see his name pop up multiple times this week, and get that reminder that, he wasn't the the bad dude that I kind of made him out to be after high school and stuff. So just wanted to shout out to Peter and get some stuff off of my chest about that. So, all right, you guys are in Central Sound your senior year. Our friend, who we've already mentioned once on this show, Chris Meek, joined you. Was this Chris's first year also? He wasn't one of those freshmen, right? He just came in as a sophomore?
Correct.
Cool. So what ended up going on with Central Sound our senior year? You've kind of touched on it a little bit, so I don't know if there's anything else you guys really had to say about our senior year. Said you went 2-2, not the most competitive you guys were.
Yeah. We had what was that? Oh geez. I know I can't remember what we won now.
Well, we won lures.
No, we didn't win lures.
Didn't win lures that year?
No, that was the year we came in like second runner.
Was it Greenfield or where was that first?
Shelbyville. We won Shelbyville. We lost lures. We lost Anderson Highland.
Yeah.
And we won Michigan, Lake Prairie or something like that. Like no, not Lake Prairie. It was Lakeview up in Michigan. So yeah, that was we went 2-2. There was a lot of stuff that was going on turmoil wise with a lot of the stuff, like family stuff that ended up costing a lot of focus, costing a lot of time that ended up just kind of pulling away. And like he said, like the maturity level of some of the people that were in there just wasn't up to snuff for, like our sophomore and junior year. The upperclassmen definitely held everybody in check. Okay. Whereas like our senior year, we were trying to hold them in check, but we were very much outnumbered by the underclassmen by that point. And you just couldn't get a hold of it properly.
Now being 42 and having a soon to be 15-year-old, my son now, Isaiah, he's a freshman, which makes me feel really old and it's crazy. But when I think about the things that I am currently navigating through and processing, and then thinking about where Mr. Bridgewater was at that time, and navigating just through a lot of just challenges with Justin, with his son, who I actually love Justin, and and my heart really broke for him because I know he was battling a lot of different things, battling and struggling with some bipolar things that were going on, some chemical things, some lots of challenges, and then Mick, trying to lead a whole department, lead his family, take care of his son. I mean, it was a lot, man. And I think, to be it for me, there was layers to it because, I mean, it's kind of a natural thing where you think like you pay your dues and then like, from a solo or different roles thing, it's like, okay, your senior year, now you get, XYZ solo or you get XYZ role. And I think that at least initially, there was some challenge, it felt tough at times where you're like, this dude gets this solo, this guy gets this solo, some of the solos I even had in senior year wasn't necessarily because I was supposed to have the solo, but it was because Justin, because of some of the things he was going through, wasn't able to participate in that competition. So I needed to fill in.
Wow.
And so there was that complicated layer of even, I think for me, learning, as a teenager, how to be mature, like how to, feel for my friend. And at the same time, be honest about my own emotions and disappointment. At the same time, be ready to take whatever opportunity was there. I was honestly super nervous even about going into the musical, because I was like really hoping to get the lead. But I was like, literally, I remember going looking at that cast list, bracing myself, to see somebody else's name up there. And, that's not new to anybody. I mean, anybody that's ever auditioned for something, that there's that butterfly feeling, and you're inevitably, there's always celebrating and tears, like with any cast list. But I just remember that particular moment. And I would say there's one moment that really stuck out to me. Dan McKay and John Anderson, who I just had lunch with last week, we would typically get circle up and pray together before competitions.
Nice.
And this one particular competition, everybody was kind of getting ready, and we went to the side to pray. And this was one of the competitions that Justin wasn't going to be there. And so we were praying for Justin, and just praying, for his healing mentally, physically. And I think Mr. Bridgewater, I think probably at first he was frustrated because he was trying to figure out where everybody was, and they were trying to get everybody together. And so we finish and we look up, and I see Mr. Bridgewater, and he's like right there, and he's like, "Hey guys, he was coming to gather us, but he had like tears in his eyes." And he had heard us praying for his son.
Nice.
And I just remember, like, I think it was in that moment where, even though I didn't have a clue what it felt like to be a dad, I do now, but I think that's when it went from just like, man, Justin, his son, is it to where it was like, no, this is a dad that is like hurting. Like, he is here at this competition, but he also is feeling like, man, I want my son to be happy and healthy and full. Like, I just realized the human level of stuff that he was going through. And again, it just gave me that much more respect for him as a leader, and just the weight that he carried.
So Jason, our senior year, you ended up joining the drama department. What led to that?
To be completely honest, the only reason I even got into drama for the most part was because of Jon and some of our other friends, like Holly Sanders, Amanda Govert. They were all talking about joining the Thespian Society.
Oh, cool.
And, Kathleen started that our junior, she planted the seeds our junior year, but you had to apply at the end of our junior year to be one for our senior year, I think is how it played out. And so I ended up like doing all the paperwork because I'd seen enough plays and been a part of enough things that I ended up joining the Thespian Society through that. And like, as we had our thespian like initiation ceremony or whatever, and like as soon as that was over, she turned to me and was like, "When are you joining? Which of my drama classes are you taking next year?" And I couldn't, because like Jon, I took a whole lot of liberties with time and effort. And our senior year, like the only class I could fail and still pass with core 40 would have been choir.
Oh,
literally, I messed around way too much our 3 first years that when I went to my guidance counselor at the end of my junior year, and I was like, because at that point, core 40 was like the only way you were getting into college.
Yeah.
So is how they sold it essentially. And so I went and I was like, "Hey, if I'm going to go to college, what do I need to do?" And they were like, "You have to do all of this." And I was like, "Oh, wow. I mean, I can do all that." But
right.
So like the first semester of our senior year, the only I could have flunked 2 classes. It was stagecraft and choir. But everything else I had to pass. And then our second semester, the only class I could fail was choir because I couldn't take the second semester of stagecraft.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, because I messed around way too much and didn't have any accountability besides like John pointed out, Mr. Bridgewater, who basically came to me at one point and said, Jason, you're messing up too much. Fix it or you won't be in Central Sound anymore. And I literally had to take that to heart because that was my favorite thing that I did as a student. I mean, besides having all the friends and doing all the fun stuff that we did, but as like a student, like that was the thing that mattered the most to me. So like the fact that he was like, if you don't get this together, you're gone. Yep. I was like, oh crap. Like he's serious too. Like Mr. B did not play when it came to stuff like that. And he didn't really say anything. But once he did, like I paid attention. So so that was the whole reason I got into drama was because the thespian, and I told her why I couldn't be in her classes the next year. And then she was like, well, then you need to at least audition for the place.
All right. So the fall play was Father of the Bride. You auditioned? What'd you get?
I did. I was the florist.
Oh, okay. John, who were you in Father of the Bride?
I don't even remember Father of the Bride. I don't think I was. I don't know if I was in Father of the Bride. Did it say, did the yearbook say I was? I don't think.
That's a good question.
I don't think I was in. I don't think I was in Father of the Bride.
I thought you were, but I can't swear to it. Like
maybe I'd have to look at the. I for some reason I remember Chris being in it.
Chris was he was the handsome man marrying the woman.
But I don't remember personally being in it. I do.
It appears that you were getting assaulted you were on a table being assaulted. Or is that?
That might be black comedy.
I think that might be black comedy. You're right. Okay, yeah.
So
okay.
Father of the Bride.
I don't think I was in Father of the Bride because my senior year in the fall, outside of actually doing Central Sound, I did something. I played rugby.
Oh,
so I was actually on the rugby team. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
So I would go from Central Sound stuff, leave and put on my rugby gear and then go compete with those guys.
So our fall senior year, you were in Central Sound, played rugby, and had to study for our government law competition.
Yeah, man. Senior year was crazy. Senior year was nuts.
All right, so
I would definitely if this was one of those moments where if you knew now what you knew then, it would totally be one of those moments for me where I'd be like, don't slack off so much your freshman, sophomore, and junior year so you can have a little bit easier time your senior year, because I screwed off too much, had to make it all up at the end, and it did not it worked out for me just fine. But I wish I would have been able, my brother Dave technically could have graduated after his first semester his senior year in high school.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because he had enough credits. And
oh my gosh.
And I know other people who had that when we were there. So but yeah, it's definitely one of those moments where it's don't screw off so much. Just and it wasn't I tried to explain this to somebody once. I said, high school is the easiest thing you will ever do in your adult life. As far as, because you're made to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Get chewed out for the most part by somebody, whether it's a teacher, whether it's your parents, somebody's going to chew you out if you screw off too much. For the most part, there are plenty of people who probably still skate by and don't do anything and then get away with it. But somebody most of the time is going to yell at you. And it's but after high school, you literally can do nothing with your life and nobody's going to care for the most part. So it's the easiest thing because you get made to go. And then they were like, well, no, it's not. And it's okay, yes. When you're 17 or 18 and hearing these words, especially when you're a senior in high school, you're not going to go, you're right. it's going to be so much harder for the rest of my life. Because
you couldn't tell us anything in high school. It's just when I think about like even just it didn't even take me long, maybe like 2-3 years after we graduated, going back, and it was like high schoolers just seemed like so little. But when we were there, we thought we should have been on the real world. Like we felt like we were adults and this is all there is. Like I think of some of the drama and relational stuff that we were in. Like it was like we were all adults and this is like there's nothing bigger than this moment. And you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, that was I just needed somebody to slap me upside the head and be like, in 5 years, you're never going to see this person again. This does not matter at all. Like it was just wild. But I was just going to jump back to something that Jason said.
What's up?
Again, it goes back to like, if it weren't for Kathleen and for Mick, like really holding us accountable and challenging us, like the only reason that, I'm just being honest, the only reason that I gave any rip about anything academically wasn't because I had these grand aspirations of college. I didn't want to go to college, frankly. I didn't have much expectation in that direction. It was because I wanted to participate in the productions. I mean, that was my community. Central Sound, the drama department, that was where my friends were, that was so much of that. And so it was kind of like, for me, having the all-nighter, falling asleep while I'm typing or paper, studying, that was the work to be able to keep hanging out with the people that I wanted to be with and participate in things that I wanted to be with. And I know for some people, depending on what their drive is, it is what it is. But for me, again, I mean, it was those conversations in Mick Bridgewater's office, like Jason just said, where he's like, listen, if you don't get this up, you're not going to be in this production. Where I was like, all right, I better get some Mountain Dew or actually I want to be hanging out at Steak and Shake, get some Surge in my bloodstream.
Wow, I forgot about Surge.
Yeah.
All right, so do you have memories, either of you, of Black Comedy, the winter play your senior year?
So that was the first thespian play that Kathleen did, and it pissed off so many people because
I can believe that.
So many freshmen and sophomores were like really annoyed at the fact that they couldn't be in the play because of the fact that they weren't thespians, but we were only thespians for only a year. Like you only had initiation once. Yeah. So it was literally a few sophomores who were juniors our senior year, and mostly seniors. Yeah. So, but I mean, kudos to Kathleen for sticking to her guns, because I know she ticked off some people that had some real talent and who like literally said because she did what she did with the thespian play that they wouldn't participate anymore. And you're talking about freshmen, sophomores, some juniors who were like, no, I'm not doing it. So she had her growing pains our junior year and probably a couple of years after that, trying to implement everything she wanted to implement. Sure. And but yeah, like Black Comedy, man, like it was Jon can talk about it more, but I only had a bit part. I was on stage for like 30 seconds maybe, but it was right near the end of the play. But it was kind of cool because our senior year we got to host the thespian conference for the state. And,
nice!
And we were one of like four shows that actually got to be put on for all the thespians from the state when we had that conference. And so it was and so we got to do it, and it was a lot of fun for me. And Jon and I had some interesting stories if anybody ever wants to hear them about the shirt design and what happened with that. afterwards. But yeah. So John, please speak of black comedy.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, John. So when I was the 4 plays that I did, it was always a big deal for the seniors at the winter play because that was their last production, the last thing they ever did. How emotionally invested were you? What were your emotions like being that your last play that you were were you the lead?
I was one of the principal roles.
Cool.
So I would say this. What was interesting is black comedy was actually the it was the only one because I didn't do any our junior year I didn't really do much of anything from a drama standpoint. I participated in the thespian club, but I wasn't doing a lot production wise. So a little bit of backstory, and it has to do with a lot with perspective. Things back then were a little bit different than they are now in terms of even just as much familiarity and engagement with the LGBT community and whatnot, and even just perspectives. And I remember I had made a comment one day in drama class or in one drama setting in the spring and in the fall that year. And it wasn't a malicious comment, but it was definitely lacking perspective and graciousness. I'll put it that way. And I had made it right when Miss Kathleen was walking in the room. And she said to me, I'll never forget this, because when I saw the cast list in the spring or later on, it reminded me of this. She said, John, I would be really careful the way that you talk about different people and their experiences, because you never know when you might have to walk in their shoes. And so I was making a comment about a guy who's kind of trying to figure himself out. I'll just put it that way. So I don't know anything about black comedy. Definitely isn't about black people. So let's just get that out of the way. And it's actually a fascinating concept, the way the musical is, because the majority of the musical is taking place during a blackout. So you're watching people who can't see. They can't see each other. They're fumbling around. So you're watching them in the dark navigating, and then the lights come up, and then that's the whole spin at the end in terms of figuring things out. And then it's also this kind of dark comedy, so it plays itself out. I had the role of the gay store owner.
Nice.
And I remember when I got the role, what was important to me, and because again I had this voice in the back of my head, was I did not want to play a caricature. I did not want to just come up with this stereotypical flamboyant caricature of what I thought a gay British guy would be like. And at the time I was working, I'd work on the side at Pacific Sunwear at Circle Center Mall.
Oh.
And actually, no. During this time I did work there at one point, but at this time I was working at the Warner Brothers studio store at Circle Center Mall.
Oh.
And my manager was a gay guy and super gracious guy. His name's Tom. Actually ran into him at Just Judy's 3 years ago. Hadn't seen him in like a long time. I was like, Tom? He's like, John? But I actually got a lot of inspiration for that character by just watching him. And I was like, I want to do this role well. And when you're playing for high schoolers, stereotypical, things will get a quick laugh. And that was probably the first role that I was in from a dramatic standpoint where even Goodrum would talk about this. He was like, you're not playing for the laugh. Play like try to be authentic in the moment and it'll be funny. Like people will laugh because just real life is funny. And so I tried to do that. And so it was a challenge. I actually ended up loving the role, had a blast playing in that production. It was a ton of fun. And I got to design the shirt. So that was also fun too.
Nice.
What
All right. Go ahead.
What
Yeah.
was cool about Black Comedy was, as he pointed out, at the very beginning of the show, the whole auditorium's dark. There's no light on stage whatsoever. And you're just hearing the dialogue from multiple people. And they're just having a good time and living in London and in this flat at this artist's studio. And then what ends up happening is there's a power outage. But when the power outage happens is when the light floods the stage. And so everybody who couldn't see can now see, and everybody who could see can't see. So
I remember going to the show and being really impressed with it because I'd never heard of it or seen it before. And I remember going and having a really good time. I haven't seen it since, but I do remember laughing a lot and having a good time with the show.
They built a trap door in LC's stage because we didn't have trap door. And the whole purpose of my character is to show up at the very end and walk right in the store. And like I had to make it look like I wasn't seeing it. Sure. I also had to be, and yeah, so like that.
How far did you fall?
It was like a 6 or 7 foot drop, man. Like it was.
Wow.
They put the tumbling mats at the bottom, and I literally just had to walk, and just take a step right in. And I remember one time the door frame was actually like long ways.
Sure.
Or widthwise for me when I was stepping into that hole. And when I did that, like I remember one of them, like I mean, it must have been like mere inches from me smashing my head when I walked in that first night too. Like I was like, oh, I can't do that again because like if I make contact, I can't do this playing. Like they're gonna put a whole lot of makeup on me, like with a goose egg on my forehead. But yeah, so. Sorry, Shane, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was about to say, if you've been with us for the last hour and you've been wondering what's going on behind Jason as his background, we are now finally to that point. Jason, please tell everybody what's going on behind you.
Groundhog. So behind me, you're seeing Jon and I, our senior year in high school, our musical that year. This was our final. A lot of the people that were in Black Comedy were in Central Sound. So where you were talking about the perspective of all these people, like, oh, my last performance, my last whatever, that didn't really resonate with us because we knew we were going to be hitting the musical like right after us.
Yeah.
So we like the musical was that for me anyway, for sure. Like I want to say out of the people that were in Black Comedy, I think there was only like 2 who were not in Central Sound. And so it was definitely a different perspective and something that this show right behind me though is How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. J. Pierpont Finch is Mr. Jon Owens, and then myself, I got to be J.B. Bigley, who is like the CEO of what is it, Wickets?
Yeah,
I forget what it is, but yeah. So yeah, a blast of a show. The song behind us that we're performing is called Groundhog, and it's J. Pierpont Finch's attempt at like bonding with the CEO of this company so that he can eventually move up the corporate ladder as quickly as possible. So
yes.
So John, were you the lead? I don't know the musical, so were you the lead?
I was.
Nice.
I was the lead. It was definitely one of the top experiences I had in high school. It was super fun. And again, I think what makes all those moments special is just the people you get to do it with. It was a super fun role. It actually, I think it helped me at least prove to myself, because I'd been in supporting roles. It was like the idea of actually being able to have the lead. I was able to, again, just push myself and prove, you know what, I think I can do this. I can I can lead, be in a lead role. But what made it so cool was, I get to do that, that performance with Jason. I get to do a song with him. I get to do a song with Jolene Smith, who's now Jolene Hermler. I mean, Jolene she still is. I haven't heard her sing recently, but her voice is phenomenal. And on top of her voice, she's one of the best people you could ever meet. So, we just had great people. Getting to Chris Meek, was in that and just had a fun role. Margot Montgomery, again, was just, there was so many different fun layers to that. Kate Nash. I mean, and again, there were so many fun, memorable moments, like songs like A Secretary Is Not a Toy. Like it was just super, super fun.
Keith Hancock, the whole cast was just so much fun to be around.
And that was one, and I think in some ways that's one. It's part of the contrast between that and My Fair Lady. Is when I think of My Fair Lady, I typically always think of Barbra Streisand. I don't think of
Hello Dolly.
I'm sorry, Hello Dolly. Sorry, not My Fair Lady.
Sorry.
Not Eliza Doolittle. When Hello Dolly, when I think of Hello Dolly, I think of Barbra Streisand, and I think of that character. I couldn't tell you a name of another character necessarily in that musical, because it's just seems like it's all about her and all about that piece. When I think about Music Man, or when I think about Guys and Dolls, or when I think about How to Succeed, and in all cards, I had never heard of How to Succeed until they announced that they were going to do it. And when I looked, I know this might be sacrilegious to some people. I'm not a huge Matthew Broderick fan. I like the original version that I saw, the older version of it that I'd seen, and just the journey of it connected on a real human level. Almost this dreamer that has great aspirations and is finding ways to charm his way up, but struggling with imposter syndrome along the way. I definitely have related to that at different phases in life, but just again, getting to do it with people that I couldn't thought of a better way to wrap up kind of that phase from a performance standpoint in high school than with that group of people.
Very nice. All right, so if we're going to move on past high school, I have to. We all know who Matthew McConaughey is and who Renee Zellweger is, but a lot of people don't know that they were in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4 together as one of their first roles. So much like you have gone on to have an amazing career with your church and everything, I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't know that back in 2000, you were in a little horror movie that some friends of yours made called Consternate. Anybody that's listening to this that has seen it before, during the party sequence in the third act, there is a dance-off between Mr. Jon Owens and our friend Lee Vidal. Do you have any memories from being at filming that night? I
absolutely have memories from being at filming that night. And I also have to, this is a sad admission, I've never actually seen the full movie.
Well, you can go on YouTube and find the Gemini Films YouTube page. The entire film is on there.
On Sunday, I'm going to pass you the DVD.
There we go.
Yeah, Collector's Edition DVD.
There you
go, baby. But yes, I totally remember it.
Awesome.
I totally remember it. And again, it was fun. I was, before I jumped totally into Consternate, I was actually going to mention one of a very poignant memory that I have in our senior year is riding in the car with you and listening to All About the Benjamins.
I'm just surprised. I was waiting for you to say that I played Mariah Carey nonstop or something.
No, well,
All About the Benjamins, okay. I thought he was going to say Bone.
Bone Thugs and Harmony. I played a lot of that too.
But just think or even I don't know if you guys remember this, but like our senior year, when we went to Denny's and got them to let us order from the
senior menu. Yes.
It
was on senior skip day.
Yes, it was. But
that's awesome. I had totally forgotten about that.
And so I think it was funny because, like, again, what was cool about Consternate, it's like we were out of high school, and so it was a neat moment to kind of like hang out with that crew,
Sure.
again. Jason has a picture from, it was like, I forget what event while we were all hanging out together, but the picture when we were hanging out in your backyard, Jason, and it's like Carrie Bias and Chris Meek and Lee, and I think Holly's in it.
That was my graduation party.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. It was my brother's house. Yep.
But I just remember just like, when we did that filming of Consternate, it was just cool because it was like, man, we kind of get the band back together again and get to hang out. And of course, I want to say, what year was that? 2000?
Yep.
Or 2000? Yeah.
Yep.
I think 99 and 2000, right? Was it 99 that we were filming?
No, we started writing it in September of 99. We did casting in February of 2000. We started shooting in May of 2000. And then we were shooting up until like 2 days before we premiered the movie.
And when was the premiere?
December 19th of 2000.
Yeah, because what I was going to say is I had already moved to Nashville.
Oh, okay.
And I came back in town to do some of that filming.
Yep.
Partly, I remembered some of the time, because if you guys remember, during one of the nights that we were filming, the Pacers were playing the Lakers in the NBA Finals in 2000.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yep.
That would be right. I remember, like, in whatever basement, of where we were filming,
my parents'
they had
house.
that on. Yeah. Yep. They had the game on. And so just kind of getting glimpses of Austin Crozier shooting threes between scenes.
I'm now having memories of the filming breakdowns that were going on that night, where we were like, oh, hey, everybody, just go downstairs and hang out in the basement.
Yep.
These other scenes. Oh, hey, everybody, come back upstairs from the basement. We need you now. Like, I had forgotten that was kind of a cluster that night.
Yeah.
They got a lot better at producing.
I did eventually get much better at producing films than on that one. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of what not to do while producing Consternate. Yeah.
I think we learned a lot of what not to do in our teens and 20s.
Yep. All right. So that summer, I think, was also summer of 2000 was the same one that Big River happened at Footlight. Were you a part of Big River?
So I was in Big River was at Anderson.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I did Big River in Anderson. It was my sophomore year there.
Right on.
And it was a blast. It was one of my favorite roles as well. To play Big Jim in that, and it was a lot of fun.
Between Footlight and Theater on the Square, did you do very many productions of those?
So growing up, I honestly, Footlight sparked much of my creative journey in organized performing arts. When I was 8.5 or 8 years old, we had just moved into the neighborhood at Heron Morton off of 21st and Delaware, which was, Footlight was at 19th and Alabama. And we heard they had a summer kids theater camp for 3 weeks. And so I remember my mom had a stroller with one of my younger brothers, or two of my younger brothers, actually. And Peter, Mary, and I, we were little. And she took us up there and participated in there. A lady by the name, she's passed away since, but Jean Combs, she was running that. And the first production that we did was a parody. It was a Star Wars parody that was written by Scott Robinson, who's been very active in the community theater realm in Indianapolis. And she was the one that actually heard me sing for the first time and was like, "Hey, you should audition for the Indianapolis Children's Choir."
Nice.
And so we, Footlight was in my backyard and loved participating in stuff in awesome. Jesus Christ Superstar and Music Man. I did Music Man 3 different times there at Footlight. And so love Footlight. Was in Romeo and Juliet at Theater on the Square. Was in I think one other show other than that at Theater on the Square. I've got it was also not far from where I lived, being downtown. And so I had a lot of fond memories of interacting and growing up around a lot of that.
So we've been talking for almost an hour and a half now, and we are finally going to get to the thing that I really wanted to talk to you about tonight. The thing that made me go, I want Jon on this show to talk to me, because I saw a Facebook post 2 or 3 weeks ago where you said after a 16-year hiatus of no productions, you were brought back into the theater world. And when I saw that, and I know Jason and I's families are both going next Saturday night. I knew that I had to go see you in a production of The Little Mermaid. I want you to talk extensively now about how that happened, what brought you out of retirement, and how awesome it's been, because I see that a lot of your family members are also involved. Yeah, so man. Please tell us a story about how this happened.
For sure. Well, so the quick, again, talking about Footlight, from when I was 8.5 and doing Footlight until up until 2000, when I moved to Nashville, I was in at least 2, and in some years 4 productions a year, between musical theater and straight plays, and I adored it. Again, I just love the arts, love performing arts, and couldn't, there's nothing I enjoyed more than that. Moving to Nashville, I moved to Nashville to pursue music with a band. And so, we were trying to tour, trying to do the whole rock star thing, moved to Nashville, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't do any plays or musicals while I was in Nashville. I did, however, join an improv comedy troupe called One Hand Clapping. The artistic director of that ended up transitioning and going to be an instructor at Second City in Chicago. So it was a very, very cool experience. And that was a lot of fun. But I started getting involved in church as a creative director there. And so most of I still had a creative outlet, but it wasn't doing the musicals that I was doing before. It was more worship leading, doing different dramatic things for conferences and whatnot. When I moved to Tallahassee in year 1 of marriage, no kids, I went back to school to finish, to get an AA at Tallahassee Community College. And I auditioned just to show support for one of our students that was at the church. I auditioned for Little Shop of Horrors and got the role of Mr. Mushnick. And that was the last musical that I have been in, or that I had been in. And that was before we'd had any kids. And I just the time factor, just didn't have time. Went from being I was a student full-time, working full-time, then started having babies, then moving and all that stuff. And then a funny thing happened a few years ago, it was about 4 years ago now. My son, Isaiah, he was 11 and he was in Mary Poppins at Grace Church in Noblesville. A lot of people don't know, but they put on phenomenal productions. And they have done some pretty amazing shows. They've done Beauty and the Beast. Mary Poppins was their last one. Before that was Beauty and the Beast. Before that was Les Mis. And honestly, in the city, outside of touring Broadway shows, to me, they put on as good a community theater productions as just about anybody out there. Just the sets, the cast, the orchestra, it's just phenomenal. So my son was in Mary Poppins. It's been really cool. They've gotten involved with community theater for youth called CGFAA, Creative Grounds Fine Arts. It's down in Greenwood. Seeing them grow, Isaiah was in one there, or a couple there, then Aaron, and then my 8-year-old, he had been chomping at the bit. So what it came down to was this. Before COVID, or right around before all that, Grace was talking about doing Music Man. And for me, it was like, I would love to do a musical, but it's like everything has to align to make it work because the schedule is just so chaotic. And so I would always think, if I was going to do a musical, it would need to be one that I had some familiarity with. It would be one that, I'm like, you know what, I know pretty much it backwards and forwards. And so this would have been my 5th time being in Music Man. I was a kid in a kid's production. I was Harold in a teen production. I was, in the quartet, and I was, also in a larger production with it. So it'd have been my 5th time. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to audition for it. My boys will be, they'll be, in the boys band. And I was even campaigning to be, I was like, I know how they normally cast Harold, but you know what? I'm campaigning for a body positive, thick Harold. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, they ended up changing it last minute. They're like, no, we're actually doing Little Mermaid.
I wonder if they couldn't get the rights because of Music Man being back on Broadway, or like what was gonna.
You know what? I'm not sure what was ultimately the deciding factor. I do know that sometimes when it comes to the deciding elements, some of it is like familiarity. It's like, who can you get the cast for? Who can, what will people come out for? Disney shows, typically a lot of people will come. You'll sell more tickets sometimes depending on that because of the familiarity.
Yep.
Which, hey, I don't have any beef with, but I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, Little Mermaid, I don't know if I want to do that. But my boys were auditioning. My sister was auditioning. And, it just felt like this was, again, I hadn't done a show in 16 years. The idea of being able to do a show with 3 of my boys and my sister was just something that I thought, I got to at least just try and see what happens. And then I also found out that, I got to listen to the music. And I would say the moment where I decided, okay, I'm going to try to go for this. It was actually, I was listening to the soundtrack, and I think most people that would be watching this, you guys know the story of Little Mermaid. You have this, for her, it's a coming of age thing, but for Triton, there's this layer of learning. He had this line, and I sing this line at the end of the song of the production, where he says, if only she could stay and never say goodbye. If only I could make time stop, believe me, I would try. But fathers have to learn that daughters have to grow. And if you truly love them, you will let them go. So here I'm listening to this. And for those who don't know, in 2011, I had a little girl who also had red hair, like Ariel, who was named Aria, who passed away when she was 6 months old. And so much of my journey has been learning how to celebrate the time that I had with her, but also release her to the Lord through my grief process. And so I'm listening to this part of the song that King Triton singing, and my son Isaiah is sitting next to me in the car, and it just hit me, man. And I just started just crying. And I just thought, you know what a cool way, again, just to have a connection, even process and tap into this story of loss and grief and love. And I saw King Triton in a way that I'd never seen it before. I mean, you got a guy who's essentially going through the grief process of losing his wife. He's raising 7 daughters on his own while trying to process his own grief and wrestling with, in some ways, placing weight on his youngest daughter to fill a void that his wife can't anymore, and wrestling with the process of learning that he can't control everything and that it's okay to not be in control. And so, throughout this musical, for those that watch, you guys are going to come see it. His trident, the way I'm playing it is I really see his trident as almost being like his security blanket. It's his power. It's his sense of control. And he's learning. And I hope to portray this in the way that I act it out, is learning how to be okay with not being in control.
That's very awesome, man. All right. So as you said, you're playing King Triton.
Yes.
You have a whole lot of family in this. Who all go give us the rundown of all your family members and who they're playing?
Yeah, my sister Ray, she goes by Ray. Mama calls her Mary, but she goes by Ray, so I'll call her Ray. She is an amazing Sebastian. She's Sebastian.
Nice.
She was originally going out for the role of Ursula, especially because Ursula and Triton in the Broadway musical are siblings. So she thought that would be fun.
Yeah.
But honestly, at the audition, man, she just nailed Sebastian. It was amazing. So she is the role of Sebastian. My son, Isaiah, he is Flounder. And gosh, he is just killing it.
Nice.
He is nailing it. He's playing it in a way like that I've never even thought of Flounder, where it's almost like, I would say, I follow me on this, but Flounder's kind of like the Eponine of Little Mermaid, where he really he has a crush on Ariel, but then realizes that she doesn't really.
Okay,
she really
I can
likes
see that.
Eric, and he's like, has this realization that, if you want to be with him, I want you to be with him, and if I can't have you, then I'll release. So it's really cool. And then Aaron and Judah, who are my sons right after them, my 12-year-old and my 9-year-old, they are in the kids chorus, and they play a frog and a turtle.
Nice.
And it's a lot of fun. I gotta tell you guys, the cast is fantastic. There aren't a lot of understudies. There are 2 different Erics, but they're actually identical twins.
Nice.
So it's kind of interesting. And the Ariels are both phenomenal. They're just incredible. Anya and Kana, both their voices are fantastic, and both of them have very different takes on the role.
Oh, cool.
And it's really cool.
Speaking of your oldest son, Isaiah, I think it's really cool that he has obviously gotten a creative bug from you, because I've seen the videos you've posted of his stop motion animation stuff that he's been making to promote The Little Mermaid. And let me tell you, please tell him that his work he's been doing is already better than any of the first couple of things Jason and I made when we had our production company.
Well, hey, I got to tell you, I was actually thinking about that. The other thing, they got technology available. Like this is something that'll mess with your head. He's never lived in a world where there wasn't an iPhone.
Wow.
He's never lived. So like, even just, when I was looking at, because he did that stop motion video, and I was thinking of a video that I had to make for an environmental science class at LC, using the editing equipment and camera stuff at the library. LC.
Yep.
And it was so tedious, and it was so laborious on these analog machines.
Yep.
That I could take my iPhone now and within 4 hours put together a much better production than we did then, with multiple days and all that. And so, but at the same time, you got to put in the work, especially for stop motion. I mean, Little Mermaid stop motion he did, there's over 1,000 stills. you know,
Wow.
in that. And it's like not even 3 minutes, but over 1,000 stills of just moving and tweaking. So he loves it. He wants to be a director.
Nice.
He loves to write, and he's got a YouTube channel. It's called Amazing Films.
I will have to look into that.
You guys, he's got a lot of his stop motions. He does a lot of Star Wars.
Awesome.
He loves Star Wars. He actually had one of his Star Wars stop motion was featured on a Star Wars podcast called Death Watch.
That's awesome.
They gave him a shout out on there. So yeah, so he definitely has the creative bug. And at 14, you know, I know it's my son and everything. So, but that's okay. I can be a dad. But at 14, to see his, you know, I think it's all of our desires that, you know, our kids, the next generation, that they're able to go further than we did.
And it's actually funny that you say that, because Jason and I've been kicking around a few ideas trying to get Jason's interest peaked and whatnot, but Jason's got a bunch of kids. I have a stepdaughter. Zach's got kids now. We have a lot of friends with kids, and I think I'm over I've got to do R-rated terrible stuff, where like I really want us to try to start producing content again using our kids, like writing it for kids, doing stuff where our kids can be creative, whether they're putting in the input or just acting or whatever. But like, that sounds like something I would love to get your son involved in if we ever actually like kick this up into full gear. Like I have a small concept story that I'm putting together to pitch to Jason that I would love to film this summer with a bunch of these kids that we have now. And so like, I will definitely be running that by you to see if you think your son would be interested in being a part of it.
Yeah, it's so cool to see. I would say the first time I was really like, you know, Isaiah, because I was in creative stuff and I was a creative director as my job, like my occupation.
Yeah.
I didn't want any of my kids to feel weird pressure about that being the thing they did as well. Like I didn't want them to feel like, oh, well, your dad does this, so you must be into this. So in some ways, I didn't push it at all. Like we got him into piano lessons. He mainly did like rec sports. And then Mary Poppins was his first production. And then his second show he auditioned for Peter Pan. And I'm thinking, I mean, he's never been, you know, this is his second show.
Sure.
He's 11. You know, maybe he can just be a lost boy, you know, let him be a raccoon or something. and he got the role of Peter Pan.
That's amazing.
I was like shocked. Like I remember when he had the callbacks and he told me, and I was thinking, you know, maybe they let him read for, you know, for John or like again. And he was like, Dad, it was weird. He's like, he goes, and just totally unassuming. And he's such a got a good head on shoulders. He was like, Dad, they just had me keep reading for Peter the whole time. And I got so scared. I'm like, there's no way he can do this. Like he'd have to sing a whole song by himself. Like he's never, and he nailed it. And I remember sitting there watching like, oh my gosh, that's like my kid. And he's doing the thing. And I think that is one of those over the years, probably honestly, when in my my mid 20s is when I think there was a shift for me of feeling the drive to want to be on stage, to want to help other young people in the same way that Nick Bridgewater and Henry Leck and Deborah Sante helped me, but like help young people through the arts discover who they are and find their confidence and grow. And now, having been around long enough that my son is one of these teenagers that I get to help, has been like and that again, it's like when I'm on stage, I don't know how many shows I'll do again. I haven't done one in 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think it won't be another 16 years. I'll tell you that much. I'm having too much fun.
Nice.
But and this isn't a knock against anyone I've ever shared a stage with. Sharing a stage with my son There's nothing better.
Dude, that's awesome.
I mean, and I look down the row and I see my 3 boys, and then I see my son who's all, like, there's a scene in the show where my son, my sister, and I, just the 3 of us, are in this scene. And every time we walk off the stage together, I just think, I don't know if I'll ever get to do something as personally meaningful as this, in that way. So I'm super stoked about it. It's going to be great. We're getting into Tech Week, so we're going to be busting our tails, to get this show to the point where we're excited about everybody seeing it. But it's going to be great, and I'm looking forward to you guys seeing it.
I'm excited, man. Next
we got
Saturday,
a lot of shows, and I got to tell you, it is you're going to get way more than a $15 ticket. I'll tell you that much.
Nice.
You can't see a movie really for $15.
No.
And the level of production that people are going to get, it's just going to be fantastic.
That is great, man. I am so excited. But before we let you go, we got one last thing we got to do. I know when we were talking beforehand, you said you weren't really excited about answering all these because you didn't really know your answers. But we do what's called the Hurwitz questionnaire when we have somebody on for the first time. It's technically your second time. You did the Jason Talks episode that I did not get to be a part of. But so that was a blast having you on for that. I'm very glad you and I got to chat on this one. So I'm going to make you do the Horowitz questionnaire. Again, We do the condensed version of it. It's only 10 out of the 17 questions. Jason, take it away with question 1.
What is the first film you ever remember seeing?
American Tale.
Oh, good one. All right.
Fievel Mousekewitz.
Nice. All right. Question number 2. What is your favorite film of all time?
This one is the hardest one. And I would say I go back and forth because there's lots of different ones, but I would say 2 that stay pretty high for me. And they're completely different films. One is Shawshank Redemption.
Good.
And then also The Sandlot. The Sandlot
nice.
is just, I could watch that time and time and time again. It was one of my most favorite childhood movies to watch.
I love it.
What's your favorite line in a film?
Favorite line in a film, and again, lots of great lines, but one that I absolutely love, and I just love the delivery of it, was Denzel Washington in Man on Fire. I think I said this last time I was on here as well, but there's a point where he's entrusted to watch this little girl, and she's kidnapped, and he's sitting across, the mother's grieving, crying, sitting on a bed, and he's sitting across from her, and she looks up at him and she goes, "Well, what are you going to do?" And he says, "Well, what I do best, I'm going to kill them. Anyone that was involved, anybody who profited, anybody who opens their eyes at me." And the resolve and the just cold delivery of that, I mean, it just pierced your soul. And again, if you've watched Man on Fire, that's exactly what he did for the rest of the movie. So that just line, the delivery of it, it just stuck with me, man.
Nice. What film made you realize that film is an art?
I had 2 with this one as well, and this kind of also says to when I was in high school. But Romeo and Juliet,
the Baz Luhrmann version.
Yes.
Okay.
With Leo. Yep. That was just, I probably listened to that soundtrack a million times. The take on it, like, again, if you had like a stereotypical picture of what you thought Shakespeare looked like in your brain, it pretty much completely screwed with that, like, every aspect of it.
Funny note about that movie real quick. The Red Hot Chili Peppers version of Love Roller Coaster is not available to listen to anywhere in the world except the YouTube video of their music video. Like, it's not on a CD, it's not on an album, it's not on Apple Music, it's not on Google Music. You can't, like, it's not on the soundtrack, actually. Like, you can only listen to that song if you YouTube search it to listen to it. The Red Hot Chili Peppers version of Love Roller Coaster.
That's wild, man.
What was your second one? Jason's going to look it up, but I literally just had this conversation a month ago.
The second one was, and it wasn't even it was Blair Witch Project.
Oh, great film.
And I actually watched it at Castleton Arts. And I remember thinking, like, what amazed me is, like, it didn't have a budget. Like, it didn't have a big budget. It was like so stripped bare, but it completely, you know, as viral as things were at that time, it hit the nation by storm. And what was so crazy is you were so engulfed in it that and I don't know who did this. I mean, I don't know if it was a national thing or just somebody had the idea at Castleton Arts. But when we walked out, on the garbage can was a bundle of sticks wrapped in a plaid shirt, and the whole crew of us screamed and ran out. I mean, to this day, we took my brother Ephraim when he was way too little to be in there, and he had nightmares for weeks. We felt it so bad. But yeah, so Blair Witch Project.
Nice.
I didn't watch the sequel either.
Funny side note about that, those sticks were the fact that they had to be used or remade multiple times, because whenever we did put it there, every like 4 to 5 shows, the bundle of sticks would get stolen from people exiting the theater.
Were you working there at that time?
I was.
Oh wow!
I was.
They also made the little stick people and hung them from the tree that was right there when you came out the exit doors.
Yeah, when you went out the exit.
It was super creepy.
Yeah. Question 5, Jason.
What movie do you consider your guilty pleasure?
The Kill Bill series, or pretty much anything by Quentin Tarantino.
Now, see, I can't really call those guilty pleasures because I don't know anybody that would say those are bad movies.
Ooh.
Well, what I would say is, like,
I mean, I don't like Kill Bill 2. I like Kill Bill 1.
It's bad, but what I would say is and maybe some of it is also like the amount of blood
okay.
and intensity. Like, I mean, mind you, he's going to tell some story. There's going to be layers of storytelling, but at least for a pastor.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
It's not necessarily one that I'm gonna promote and say, hey, go check this movie out.
Understandable. All right, man. So who is your favorite actor or actress of all time?
That one is that's super hard. But I didn't go with actress. I went with 2 actors that I just really like. Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, sure.
His the way his chameleon-like ability to make you forget that he's Daniel Day-Lewis, like, and just that he is whoever he's playing. And I know some people think this other guy I'm gonna say plays the same role, but Denzel, man, I just really like him. I like his, it's kind of like he's one of those guys that I want to see Denzel when I go to a Denzel movie. And I think I appreciate, like, I've listened to a couple different talks that he's done on discipline and the way that he approaches his craft and what he does. And you can just tell there's such an intentionality and a work ethic behind the craft of acting that he really does take seriously.
His Inside the Actors Studio is one of the best ones they ever did.
Yes.
Like, it is phenomenal to listen to him and James Lipton talk about, like you said, the craft of how he gets into roles and things like that. Like, yeah, his Inside the Actors Studio is great to listen to.
Yep.
Jason,
who is your favorite director of all time?
I'm gonna go with, for today, I'm going to go with Steven Spielberg.
Nothing wrong with that answer.
There's just so many classics. And honestly, it's like the range. It amazed me when I was like, oh, he just did West Side Story. I don't know if you guys have seen that, the newer version of it. It's so good.
Is it?
It's so good. It's so good. And it's like, I know this could sound blasphemous. It's better than the first.
Oh, interesting.
And the way, and I would say particularly what makes it better is we've grown as a nation, we've grown as a culture in terms of even, I think, quite frankly, most of the people that played Puerto Ricans the first time weren't Puerto Rican. They just had bronzer. And so even the perspective and understanding the perspective of that community was different. And but man, it was good. And you're like, oh, he did that. Oh, and then he's done all these other, sci-fi. And I mean, it just, it's pretty remarkable.
For sure. Who is your favorite character from a movie?
Going back to the movie I mentioned, Shawshank Redemption, I love the character of Andy Dufresne.
Nice.
And the progression that you see in him from the beginning to the end. And I also absolutely love Samwise Gamgee.
Nice. Okay.
I love Tolkien, and I love that all those books. But watching that character play out from the beginning. We just did a movie marathon, a Lord of the Rings movie marathon with my son for his 12th birthday. And then just watching that from beginning to end was just pretty cool.
Awesome. Question 9.
Where are we? Oh, what is your favorite movie snack food?
Reese's Pieces.
Nice.
Reese's Pieces and a half and half icy with blue raspberry and white cherry.
I like it. Nice. All right. So the grand finale question. If they made the Jon Owens movie, who is cast as Jon Owens?
This one is hard. But it depends on what phase. If it's the high school phase that you see behind Jason, Anthony Ramos.
Oh, okay. I could see that for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I had the curls. I had the curls for it. So
I do like how you went from having the amazing hair on top of your head when we were in high school to now the epically awesome beard on your face.
Well, the recession hit us all, man.
Trust me, I know.
Yeah, but and the funny thing is, I've been growing this out for the role of Triton.
Awesome.
As soon as the show is over, I have promised my wife, because she is tired of. She doesn't like to kiss me when she gets beard hair stuck in her lips. So we'll have a shave. There'll be a shearing.
Okay,
on
understandable.
Sunday night, March 6th.
Nice. All right, so Anthony Ramos, who plays now Jon Owens?
You know what? I would almost, let me see. What's my man's name? I'm blanking out on his name right now. He plays Commissioner Gordon in the new Batman film.
Oh, yes. Say it again.
Say?
Jeffrey?
Yes.
It's the dude. It's the dude from Westworld. Jeffrey Wright.
Yes, Jeffrey Wright.
Yes. Oh, dude, that's great casting. That's awesome. All right. So I always ask everybody this also because I have huge curiosities. If Jason and I were characters in your movie, who plays each of us?
Oh gosh.
I love hearing people's reactions to this one.
So again, I'm gonna stick to high school versions of us.
Sounds good.
Because because honestly, that was really a time where we were running around.
Sure.
And I would say, I'm trying to think, if I were to pick.
I like Ethan Embry. When Micah was on here and he picked Ethan Embry for me, at least that was different, and I wasn't expecting that one. So
you know what? It's that I've got to think of names, man, but not gosh, why am I blanking out on this? I'd have to think about that. About that.
Understandable.
I was going to say either that or give me the character and I'll find it for you if I don't know it. So
well, I feel like I would almost say for Jason, perhaps a younger Seth Rogen.
He gets that a lot. He's not happy about it, but he gets that from other people.
And that's why I was hesitant because I know like
what it is, man. Like especially when 40-Year-Old Virgin came out, man. Like that's what everybody was like, "That's Jason."
But I'm trying to think. What's dude who was what's the kid that was in it and he was also in Stranger Things?
Oh, Finn Wolfhard.
Yes.
Is it
I feel like
Ghostbusters, right?
Yes.
The guy from Ghostbusters?
I feel like you had some I think he could play. I mean, he'd need some tweaking, but I feel like he could play
Shane.
A teenage Shane.
Okay. I'm not opposed to that. I dig that. Oh man, John, it has been so much fun catching up with you tonight, man. Going down high school lane, getting all that out. Thank you for agreeing to join us to promote Little Mermaid. I know Jason and I are both super excited to go see it. I hope some other people check it out. I love the fact you're getting back into theater. I love the fact that your son is so passionate about creating stuff. And I mean, who knows? Maybe we can add something better that we all did together other than consternate.
Hey. I think we can. I think we can.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Next week, I think we might finally do the soundtracks episode. Soundtracks we've had the script for like 3 weeks now, and it just kept getting pushed back. So I think next week we're finally going to do the soundtracks episode. Unless something better comes up between now and then, we'll see. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Talk to you guys next week.